God. You like how it slows down right before it, you get to like the last 10 seconds?
It slows down like 2 or 3 times. The
Yeah,
tempo.
It's to
I
give
know.
people a chance to bail out at the last minute.
That's right. That's right. You know, they're going to go, let me get the hell out of here.
What the hell did I get into?
uh,
We'll have to change the name to Going Down the Rabbit Hole.
it sure feels like that sometimes. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm Alan Ulrich here with my co-hosts, Sean Williams and Bob Rose. How y'all doing tonight, guys?
Doing good, man. Still pissed off, but
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's 2 weeks in a row. You know, they build up this huge lead against us. What was it this time? 20 to 3, 20 to 6 this time. Yep. And then that's when we decided to start playing football. And yeah, we're going to talk about that phantom roughing the passer call, which as soon as I saw the flag and I looked at as the play was going on, I'm like, it's got to be roughing the passer. Because
nowhere near his head. Nowhere near his head.
It wasn't near his head. And you know, I watched the CBS broadcast of it like everybody else did. And, you know, not only does Trent Green say there's no roughing here, you know, they go to the studio. Boomer Esiason's losing his mind over it. And Ryan Clark next to him is like, yep, exactly. It's going to cost if this costs them the game, it's horrible. You know, and then it gets carried over into the other shows as well. So it's to me, it's almost as it's not to the same level, but it's almost as blatant as the no call pass interference that we got in the 2018 NFC Championship. I mean, and there's no review process. And I think ultimately, that's what pisses everybody off is that you have all this technology now. This is not like the 70s or even the 60s that, you know, you have just 3 cameras out there. You have multiple cameras all over the field. You can easily do like what they do in college football. Have an eye in the sky, have a, you know, an official in there, and he just buzzes down to the officials. Hey, I think you want to take a look at this again, you know, but knowing the NFL and the way the NFL protects their image, it'll be like the pass interference calls. You know, that was reviewable. That it coincidentally enough, every pass interference call was reviewable. Oh no, it was upheld. So after a year, it was like, no, we're not going to do it because you can clearly see that we get it right every time.
Here's the thing, and I know I see Sean edging to the edge of his seat, so I know he wants to go off.
He shoot his hand off already.
So yeah, that's why I'll take my turn real quick first. Even if these kind of things were reviewable, it wouldn't change a damn thing. Not as long as Roger Goodell and his gang of thieves are in charge, and that's what the problem is. The issue, and I don't believe that the league is out to get the New Orleans Saints specifically. The league is blatantly there to protect, to prop up certain players, Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, certain teams, Indianapolis Colts when Peyton played for them, Patriots, certain markets, Los Angeles, Boston, New York when possible, that kind of thing. So even while I make no secret that about the blatant corruption that goes on in this league, the entire league's officiating crew needs to be wiped out and start all over. But none of that's going to make any bit of difference as long as the corruption sits at the top of the league office. And I'll just put the mic there because I've gone on rant. And I know, you know, we just have a small voice, so I know it's not going to make a difference. But I'm convinced that these games aren't fixed because the players on the field, there's too much of a human element involved to actually absolutely fix games. But Goodell wants to have as much control over the outcome as physically possible, and he has succeeded in doing exactly that.
Go ahead, Sean.
I told the guys off camera I was going to start the show with a disclaimer that there was probably going to be profanity involved tonight. We try to keep it clean, but to quote Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to go so far as to say that those two calls that gave Tennessee touchdowns or first and goal cost the Saints the game. What cost the Saints the game is two missed extra points. It sucks when you live and die with your team and you have to put up with this week after week after week after week. We were 2 points from at least being tied with the best team in the AFC.
2 points, and the opponents were gift wrapped a touchdown. So keep that in mind too, like you said.
I mean, that to me, that's the thing. They were given that touchdown because it's less than 2 minutes left in the game. They pick off Tannehill, so that's a change of possession. It's not just a pass interference call, for example, where they get first and goal. No, it's you took the ball away. So now you can get the ball in your 25, and theoretically, you have enough time to get down the field to at least get in the field goal range. Whether or not Brian Johnson kicks the field goal, that's another thing. He probably hits the field goal. He just can't kick extra points.
Right.
Which, again, that is a league objective. They move the ball back from the 18-yard line to the 33-yard line, 5 years ago now, 6 years ago?
Something like that.
Yeah, because extra points were being converted at like a 95% rate. Now I think it's being converted at like a 75% rate, 80% rate, which is what they wanted. They wanted to make these games more competitive. So we're going to have the extra point is the chances are you're going to miss that now, where it was automatic before. And you now have more and more judgment call by the officials to keep it close. Oh, yeah. You taunted. So it's now a 15-yard penalty, first and goal, Pittsburgh. Oh, let me stick my ass out. So you bump into an official, personal foul call. Once again, the Bears lost by 2 points. So it's these keep it close kind of calls that really are affecting outcomes of games. And it's frustrating.
I've said for years, the biggest problem with NFL officials is it's not their only job. They are not full-time referees. They do this and they have another job. And that needs to change. Wouldn't you say so?
And I agree with you, Sean. But if and when you do change that and make the NFL officials a full-time job and full-time responsibility, you got to clean house. Yeah, you got to bring in all new people. With rigorous off-season training programs, preseason, mini camp, off-season, exactly what the coaches and the players have to go through. But again, this will never happen. Because of the man at the top, the man who has single-handedly ruined the NFL and the greatest game in history of professional sports.
It's frustrating as anything because I don't want to compare it to wrestling because that's kind of lazy analysis, and wrestling is scripted from the get-go. We all know this, Sean,
yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm teasing. Yeah, it's scripted. And the NFL is not scripted. But the NFL does know, and they're well aware of the impact that fantasy football, that now casino or gambling, which before was forbidden. I mean, none of us here are old enough, but there was a time where players got suspended for gambling.
Yeah.
Paul Hornung and Alex Karras, Mongo from Blazing Saddles, both got suspended. Or if you remember this show, Webster's dad, they were suspended for gambling. So the
Suspended
league
from the league.
yes,
Yeah.
for a whole year, and Lombardi blames that. What he doesn't blame the league, but he had blamed Horning getting suspended, doing this, costing them his three-peat, his first three-peat, because he wanted to win 3 consecutive NFL championships, and he didn't get to do it. He did it with the 66, 67, 68 teams, but he did not do it in the early part of the 60s when he had a better team. By the time the Ice Bowl came, the Packers were pretty old. But anyway, going back, the league is well aware of the impact gambling has. So you've got to keep people interested. The league does not want these blowout games. They want parity. They want games like last night, the 49ers and the Rams. They loved that because a lot of the money was on the Rams super team. They loved that you had a big upset. They love when Tampa got upset. They love when those things happen because it's all about keeping the money moving. That you have any given Sunday, a team can win. So yeah,
Well,
it's
during the
just
regular season, they want that. But again, when push comes to shove, Goodell wants the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, the Patrick Mahomes, the Los Angeles markets, the Boston markets, the New York markets, if possible. He wants them standing at the very end. That's what all this is geared to, as well as catering to the gambling community. And when I say gambling community, I lump that in with the fantasy football world, like you said, Alan. Yeah, look, I used to be deep into fantasy football too, but that's what this league, the corrupt Nazi at the top, they want these shootouts. They want these high statistics. This egomaniac, he wants to say all these records and all this and all that were set under my tenure. If we'll go back to a WWE comparison, he is Vince McMahon. He is a parody of Vince McMahon, who is a parody of a human being.
Yep.
Yeah, Sid Vicious Broken Leg was kind of real. Yeah, and so which one was it, Sean, that did the dive and got killed?
That was Owen Hart.
Owen Hart, that's right. Yeah. It's one of those things. And John Gruden, I meant to bring this up earlier. John Gruden is suing the NFL over these emails that were released. That the league is now saying, "Oh yeah, we it's all done. There was no other offensive things in there. It was just Gruden." Well, Gruden wants these emails released because, of course, we're going to know there's a lot more that was discussed.
They'll never let it happen.
It'll never happen. I know that. You have an easier time getting the Pentagon Papers out than getting emails out of the upper offices of the NFL, because it's like going back to Bountygate. Goodell said, "Well, we have a stack of evidence, and let's see it." You don't need to see that. Just take our word for it. We have a stack of evidence. We have the emails.
Yeah, right. So and Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman.
Yeah. Take your punishment. We've got a lawsuit to settle, damn it. We don't need those ex-players telling us that about CTE and that we knew about it. We buried all that stuff. Damn it, we're tough on safety. So Sean Payton, you're banned for a year. I mean, that was basically the reason why Bountygate existed. And I told everybody hundreds of times.
Yep.
The whole time that was going on, go Google on YouTube, Smash for Cash. It was a story that was done right before the 1995 Super Bowl between the Packers and the Patriots. Andrea Kramer does the story, and it's all about the exact system that the Saints were running, their Bountygate. Basically, it was players putting their own money in, competing for big plays, big hits, turnovers, interceptions, all those things. and Chris Dishman's walking around. He had money pinned to his shirt because he won. He won the pool because he got interceptions that game. If you got the interception that sealed the win, you got a big payday. Reggie White asking his wife for money because he owes the defense X amount of money because of the bounties, the quote unquote bounties. I mean that's what it was. And then they talked about the worst tackling day they ever had because they were going for the strips and the big plays and stuff like that instead of playing fundamental football, and they got their ass kicked. But yeah, and then the Beaver's out. That's one of the big things you'll see on it because the Beaver, and it's funny how the players all repeated it by rote. The beaver is the hardest working animal in the animal kingdom. They just say it like a robot because that was the thing. And I remember in the 2009 America's game, you've got Jonathan Vilma, you've got a couple other players talking about the defense, watching the film of animals, nature, and its aggression. The lion attacking the wildebeest, the alligator going, the wolves running down prey. There's like just aggression. They don't give up. They work as a unit. They kill the small animal. And I'm like, that's exactly what Greg Williams is running. But now it's a problem because it was a lawsuit. So
we've all been involved in sports. And I absolutely despise Greg Williams. But the big deal that they made out of that speech that he made before the San Francisco game.
My God,
have you ever played for a coach that didn't do that?
Oh my God, they said worse things. They said worse things.
Worse things to younger players. Yeah, all the way back to Pee Wee in some cases.
Absolutely.
One of my first coaches was in World War II. He came across Europe with Patton. You would think that he would be loud. He never raised his voice. And when he told me that I was going to be the starter, he handed me a football and he said, "You would rather have died as a small child than lose this." And I was like 13 years old.
The Rodney Dangerfield routine, I went to a tough school. When we played football, after they sacked the quarterback, they went after his family. I mean, that's the joke. I mean, because everyone knew that. I mean, I heard coaches, on the sideline, rip his goddamn head off, that kind of thing, screaming at you, put that mother in the ground, that kind of thing. And and then when you do the Oklahoma drill, where it's just you against the other guy, and y'all are just tackling one-on-one. I mean, the louder the hit, the harder the hit, the louder the coaches got. They want to hear that pad. They want to hear those pads. They want to hear those helmets hit. I mean, Grant and Sean and Bob, you're also old enough to remember, Coach, if you had a bad practice, you wouldn't get no water break.
No.
That was punishment. We're going to withhold water from you, and I'm not saying those things are right.
No, that part isn't.
No. Well, same with hitting people, lowering your helmet, not doing the right tackling, that kind of stuff. Corey Stringer, those of you who remember who Corey Stringer was, the lineman from the Minnesota Vikings who died of heat stroke. Back when the Saints were in La Crosse, Wisconsin, he was in Manitowoc, I think, Wisconsin, so it was just a really warm day that day. But, we obviously have learned things since then. But to make it sound like, and Greg Williams is an old school coach, but to make it sound like this was just unheard of, and this is not the kind of football that, people expect, it's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. You can sit there and say, this is the kind of football that we don't want anymore. But to make Greg Williams sound like he was some kind of vicious animal It's just ridiculous. It really was. So,
Well, the problem that you have, in my opinion, is you're
absolutely.
what you're trying to do is, by its very nature, football is a violent sport.
Yeah.
Nobody twists your arm and makes you play. That's a conscious choice that you make. And when you make the choice to play, you're accepting on all levels that it's a violent game. And
Absolutely.
as Alan said, we've learned so much as far as like water breaks, the correct form in tackling, and so on and so forth. But now you've reached a point where you're trying to legislate the level of violence in the game, and you can't do that.
Well, and my bigger thing is revisionist history. They're pretending like that's not how the game was. I've got a VHS tape at my house. Those of you who remember what VHS tapes are, 100 of the NFL's greatest tackles.
Mm-hmm.
In the ad for it, there's 100 of the hardest hits in the NFL, and it's it's Jack Tatum. It's like Jack Tatum's personal highlight.
Yeah.
Where you see helmets fly and equipment go, and then ESPN used to do. He got jacked up.
Yep.
When it hit somebody and they're now staggering. Football Follies used to play like Looney Tunes sound effects to people getting concussions. So, you can't hide that. NFL films exist. You can Google that stuff. You can find that stuff, when the league used to promote that. So, again, that's my problem with all this is you can't put that away. That's there. That's why those players were suing. Because they do have long-term effects from that kind of game. Okay. But what's happening today now is you're not having a pure game. If you're trying to do things for player safety, these BS roughing the passer calls where you basically touch the quarterback, it benefited us. And yes, Jameis Winston got hurt, but because by the law, the rule was a clothesline tackle because he grabbed him by the nameplate. But I'm sorry, not clothesline, horse collar tackle. But a lot of that injury came not from the tackle, but from the way he was spun and he tried to catch himself, and his foot got caught in the turf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sean Payton even said it. His foot got caught in the turf. So it makes it, how do I put this without sounding like, you're right. It's trying to legislate the violence out of the game, but it makes the game less interesting because there's too many penalties now.
Yes.
Now, if there's anything that happens, here comes a flag, and you're leaving too much in the hands of the officials to make these judgments, and they're unwilling to second guess themselves via technology.
Yes.
It all depends on the helmet emblems and the color of the uniforms that are on the field too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Nobody can convince me otherwise. There is just too much evidence to support that. Blatant evidence right in front of your face. And frankly, for the first 30 minutes of this show, we're talking about idiot ass Roger Goodell, and he doesn't deserve a single sentence, a single word of any of the three of our times or any of you viewers' ears. I'm ashamed that we have to talk about it yet again.
Well, my problem is who's next, and I feel they're going to be worse.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
He had a lot of problems, but I thought Pete Rozelle was probably the best commissioner for the league.
No doubt.
Either him or Tagliabue.
I liked him better than Tagliabue because I thought Tagliabue, granted he helped save the Saints, so I can't talk too bad about him, but I thought he was weak. I thought he was weak compared to Rozelle. Rozelle didn't mind taking Al Davis to court.
Yeah.
Could to block a move. I felt that Tagliabue let things happen. Now, granted, franchises moved more under Rozelle than Tagliabue, but Rozelle was trying to fight those moves a lot more than I thought Tagliabue did. But Tagliabue is light years better than Roger Goodell. I mean, the whole draft is now a show. It's frustrating to watch because it's not about football anymore. It's like the Oscars. It's like watching the Oscars. It's about the red carpet. It's about these guys coming out in these suits and everything is, look at the spotlights and, you got all this going on. And it's not about whether these guys are good football players. No one dares be critical of any players. As much as I don't like Mel Kiper, I have to laugh because that seemed to be the highlight of the draft. Who the hell is Mel Kiper when Bill Tobin just lost his shit because he didn't take Trent Dilfer? Which reminds me, Mike Mayock, who was the NFL Network's Mel Kiper, had to cut his first round draft pick. He's lost another one. He cut the other one. He cut both of them. He cut one because he pulled a gun on social media. He cut the other one because he was doing 156 miles an hour, killed somebody because he was drunk.
Twice the legal limit, and you're driving 150 miles an hour.
Yep. 3 times the legal limit, and what a wonderful, wonderful personal player evaluation there, Mayock and staff, top notch.
Exactly. And, you're seeing all these things. And that was the whole point of Bill Tobin's rant about who the hell is Mel Kiper, because he's like, here's this guy. He's on TV. You should draft this guy. This is the guy that's going to be the star. This is the guy who's going to make it. This is the guy who's going to be a bust, and the reality is Mike Mayock is showing, they don't know any more than you or I do just from watching college football and reading the draft book. They really don't know. It's a guessing game.
It is.
And, you put Mel Kiper in charge of the franchise, it's going to be like the Detroit Lions or the New York Jets, but on TV, nobody questions you. Nobody goes after you for these things. So that was my rant. And I usually save that rant for the draft itself, but to me, that's just more things about Roger Goodell. Everything's a show. Everything's it's got to be production. The NFL honors. We can't just announce the awards. We got to have this friggin' thing. This bloated 3 hour.
5
hour? Not the draft. I'm talking about the NFL honors. It's 5? No,
I'm talking about the draft.
No.
I was too busy doing my Vince McMahon impersonation.
But yeah, this bloated 3 hour honors show, and everything is just, it's frustrating because it's all about expanding the market, making more money and doing all these things. And the game itself is shrinking, I feel. It's shrinking under the weight of show business and officiating, trying to manipulate the game so we have lots of offense, no defense, and high scores, but keep it close with a lot of penalties. And it's just it gets frustrating to watch. It's like almost every other play. I'm like going, okay, where's the flag? There's got to be a flag. Somebody tackled somebody too hard. Somebody breathed on somebody else. And it's.
Well, guys, when I was growing up, and I'm still growing up. I'm far from grown. I was that kid and young adult that watched. If it was a football game on TV, I watched it. Period and end of story. Now I watch the Saints, and occasionally I will watch a game that involves one of the teams that the Saints are playing, just because it involves my job. Outside of that, and listen, I grew up a Bronco fan. I live in Steeler country. I still try to catch both of those teams when I can, but I won't go out of my way anymore to do it. The only time my world stops is when the Saints are playing. And again, it's also the nature of my job. But I'm not blaming it on the job. Love you, Kyle Mosley. I would do it anyway. But literally, that's the only game that I will stop what I'm doing and watch every single week. That's how much Roger Goodell has changed me. And now I'm really pissed because we're 45 minutes into a Roger Goodell rant and not talking about football.
I know, but I'm the same way as you. I watched a lot of football growing up. In the 70s and the 80s, I watched a lot of games. There was a period in the middle 80s when I started college, in the end of my high school years, because the Saints were not very good. Bum Phillips needed to go, that kind of thing. It took until 87 to really get my interest back in the Saints again. 83, 84 pretty much killed it when we got Richard Todd instead of Warren Moon. That said, I would watch Monday Night Football. I would watch the afternoon games, and then when I started playing fantasy football in the early 90s, and that's how far back I go with fantasy football. When I started playing fantasy football in the early 90s, I started watching more games because I had players playing. But it's like today, and that's probably the reason why I got out of fantasy football. Thursday night game, I might watch it. I don't know. Probably not.
Up until very recently, though, the Thursday night games are so boring because the matchups don't compute.
No, they're terrible. And then the same thing with Monday Night Football. Unless it's a Saints game, I don't watch a Monday Night Football game. I will watch the Peyton and Eli show. I do enjoy that on ESPN too, but I'm not watching the game. I'm listening to them. The game's peripheral, and I can remember being upset as a kid that I had to go to bed at halftime. I at least got to watch the halftime highlights when Howard Cosell used to do it, but that was like I had to watch it. I don't care who it was. It was usually one of the better teams playing, but that was just how it was. And today, it's just like no. And it's not that the football was really better. If you watch an old football game, like you watch the Hail Mary game, that's on YouTube. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Minnesota Vikings. That is a boring game to watch because it's running with a little bit of passing and punting, a lot of punting because it's field position. Okay, that's all this game was about field position. You're pushing the ball with the punt because you're hoping your defense can force them to kick out of their either inside their 20 or something that they're going to punt and you didn't get the ball at midfield. That was how the game was played back then. And really building up to the Hail Mary, you don't realize it's really going to happen until that play happens. Then I recognize from NFL films about where Roger Staubach is on the field when that play happens. But yeah, that game's on there and I watched it. I'm like, wow, this is a pretty boring ass game. Super Bowl 7's on YouTube. Yeah. You watch the perfect season, the perfect Dolphins. That is a boring ass game to watch. If you're expecting football like today. But that was the football I was used to. Lot of running. It's a fast game. But they're just beating the hell out of these receivers. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're watching this going, that's a flag. That's a flag. It's just, but nope.
I'm pretty sure that every single tackle that Jack Lambert ever made, would be a penalty today. Ricky Jackson would be in prison. Those kind of things.
So would Jack Tatum.
Yeah. Jack Tatum might be deported.
The Darryl Stingley hit alone. I mean, he would have been gone for the year. Concrete Charlie, Chuck McNarick. We're going to talk about the Eagles in a little bit, but the last of the two-way players, that hit on Frank Gifford, where they thought they killed him.
It looked like he killed him.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was taunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This game is effing. And you got the pinky coming out like this. This game is effing over. Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing about that game was, Sam Huff just recently passed away. He passed away this weekend at 87 years old. He played for the Giants. He was at that game. Of course, he played defense, but a fan did have a heart attack in the stands, and he died. And an ambulance came and picked him up. And when the Giants players came out of the locker room and saw a body on a gurney being loaded into an ambulance, they thought that was Frank Gifford. They thought he was dead. I mean, that's how. And he missed the entire. I think it was 60. That was a 62 game. I think that was 63 season. He missed that entire season from that hit. So I mean, different era.
When you get when somebody hits you and knocks a year out of your life.
Yeah. Speaking of fingers bent to a different angle, how you like that play with poor Ty Montgomery?
Guys, is it wrong that I was still more pissed that he dropped the ball?
I almost put that picture instead of the Brian Johnson kick. I almost put that picture of his hand with the pinky turned to the side, or him holding it like that, because I've seen that in person. I've seen that happen on a football field. And my daughter and I both went, "Ooh, got to pull that thing out, straighten that thing out now. You got to pop it back in." But, of course, when they show the close-up and the glove was split.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's going to have the bone sticking out here. That's not one of those you just pop back in on yourself, Yeah, that was a tough one. But when I was a kid, this finger here, my ring finger, this fingernail, I got it caught in a kid's helmet and it ripped it 3/4 of the way off. And the worst part about it was I had to finish the job. That's the part that hurt. The seeing the fingernail hanging like that didn't bother me. It was having to finish the job. So,
I tried. You both met me, in person multiple times. You've seen my fingers from all the volleyball and other injuries. You both shook hands with me with a dislocated wrist that it never healed right. So you probably felt. I think Alan, it was the first time I met you. You asked if I was all right after the handshake because my wrist pops in and out. On a firm handshake. Nature of the beast, I suppose.
I tried to block a punt I blocked a punt one night, and I dove just like this, and that ball hit both my thumbs at the same time and completely dislocated both of them.
Ooh.
Well, and like Alan said, back then, you were either dead or you played.
Yeah.
And I was a fullback.
Bob, you're a John Elway fan. Do you know about the game that they used to play with the receivers in Elway? And I think even the defensive players used to do it until Dan Reeves put an end to it. It was John Elway basically cocking that arm back and throwing a football at you as hard as he could. And if you caught it, you took a step forwards.
Yep.
And these players are coming back with, black and blue arms and like little crosses in their chest from this ball hitting them in the chest.
It was called the Elway cross.
Yeah.
And they played this game with pads on. And he was still leaving marks and crosses through the receiver's pads. True insanity.
Yeah. And then when to see how hard he could throw that ball. It's like, my God, it's like the ultimate version of dodgeball. Yeah. I used to love that game, dodgeball.
Me too. Yeah.
You
always
targeted the fat kids first because they were
Lauren was talking about getting bullied in gym class. Now Lauren was definitely not a fat kid, but she's hearing us talking and she sits back. She sits back on the couch. She goes, "Must have been nice not to be bullied in gym class."
No, I was bullied in gym class too. I was not small, but I was lanky. and I grew funny. And y'all gonna get a kick out of this when my birthday falls late. Okay. What you? I even told the story you're laughing at already. So
you had a bit. I grew funny.
I did. Yeah. I grew funny. My feet grew first, so I tripped a lot and I fell a lot. And then my arms and legs grew first, but I had the torso of like a 10 or 11-year-old, but the height of, a 16-year-old. So I got these long arms and long legs, and my waist, because I had the small torso, I like an old man that pulled his pants up to his nipples. They were like, "Alan, where's your belly button?" I'm like, "Above this." And they're like, "Holy cow," because my pants were so high, and people used to pull their pants up. Look, I'm Alan, so took me a while to fill out, and yeah. I'm looking for dates. I mean, and God also said, you have these nice soft curls as a kid. Once puberty hits, let's make that look like pubic hair. Boom! And it's like, I like Epstein from Welcome Back, Kotter. So I got this little tiny torso, long arms and long legs, a little bit of acne. I'm looking for dates.
How'd that work out for you?
It didn't.
It did once, and I guess that's all it needed to, but
that's it.
Well, when I played my 8th grade year, I was starting fullback, and I was 5'4" and 132 pounds.
Oh.
But I could run a 4.6 40. And by high school, I trimmed that down to about a 4.3.
Wow.
My gift was I'm small, as you guys know, but I'm tough for my size. I was blazing fast. I was a 4.3 like you, and reality still is that I still am. I'm psychotic as hell. It's fast and fearless were my two gifts. That was it.
I had really good agility, and if I ever broke the line of scrimmage, you couldn't catch me.
Right. Yeah, because even playing baseball, if I got on first base, you might as well have handed me a triple. Everybody knew I was stealing second and third. Nobody could stop me. And that's all I got. I was going to say something nasty about Goodell, but I don't want to get back on that.
No.
So let's move on to the Eagles.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. A couple of things, we didn't really talk much about Brian Johnson, the fact that he can't hit a field goal, kicks an extra point. They brought in a kicker. They brought back Brett Mayer. How do they say his name again? Mar. Yeah. No, it's not. Is it Mar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
I think Sean's right. I think I remember having this conversation in training camp when they signed him.
Right.
You said Meyer, I said Mayer, and I think Sean's pronunciation of Mar has been right the whole time.
Probably so. It's spelt like Mayer or Mar or Meyer. I've seen it pronounced multiple ways, that spelling. But anyway, they brought him back, and he wasn't that good of a kicker either. He struggled with extra points and field goals. The other day, our old friend from the Super Bowl, Garrett Hartley, was out there at Yeoman Stadium kicking 60-yard field goals to show he can still do it now. He's a little chunkier now, so he probably has more power behind that leg. What can the Saints do? I mean, you're basically rummaging through the scrap pile trying to find something that'll just carry you over. And it seemed like Brian Johnson, we were thrilled he made the extra points. And they haven't made a 2-point conversion 8 consecutive tries, which I did not know until they brought that up Sunday.
Same.
So it's not even like the 2-point conversion is a reasonable option. It's almost like you might as well just concede. We're not going to make it. Let's go straight to the kickoff. I mean, what can they do?
Really, there's not a lot of options. Like you say, you're going through the scrap heap, trying to find an answer, and you know, there's not an answer in the scrap heap. You're just picking over somebody else's rejects.
Yeah.
We're likely to not have consistency until Lutz comes back next year.
Probably so. I mean, Bob, what do you have to say? I mean, is there a kicker that you're aware of even that could possibly just carry us for a little bit, a few games?
No.
I mean, I watched the 70 Saints and they went through kickers like I don't know, Henry VIII went through wives. So I mean, it's just it seemed like we had every Mickemeyer that ever played football on your team.
Yeah, maybe
the Mickemayers and the Zendejas used to rule the NFL in the 60s, in the 70s and the 80s.
I get asked this a lot. Is there an answer at wide receiver? Is there an answer at tight end? Is there an answer at offensive line? Is there an answer as a pass rusher? Is there an answer at kicker? The answer is, yeah, there's an answer, and they're all the same.
No.
Yeah.
No. They're going to roll with what they have because they have to.
Yeah.
With the kicker, you might grab lightning in a bottle occasionally. And if you keep it, I call it the shotgun approach, is if you scatter shot something, you're bound to get a kill. With a kicker more so than any other position, the possibility is there to do that. And Sean Payton has never hesitated to do that before. He changes kickers like underwear. But it's a matter of trial and error. And they don't have a lot of errors left in them as a team this season. Where kicking could cost them many more games. Otherwise, they're sitting at home in January. A lot of people expected Brian Johnson to be cut. I wouldn't have been surprised if it happened. But the reality is, even with the signing of Maher, I still expect Johnson to be in a Saints uniform on Sunday because he has already kicked for them in a game. He has already won them a game. Last second field goal at Seattle. Granted, it was shorter than an extra point. But the kid is 8 for 8 on field goals. He's missed 3 of 8 extra points, which is mind-boggling in itself. So he's far from the answer, but he's the best answer they have right now.
Yeah. There was a stat, and I don't have it anymore. From 2017 to 2020, how many 1, 2, and 3-point games the Saints won over that stretch? And it's now flipped. We're losing those kind of games.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the next topic that a lot of things is, first off, Saints Twitter is not real world. It's an imaginary world of frustrated people. Okay.
Facebook is worse.
Facebook too. But it's mostly people who are upset with the world and they vent on Twitter about it. One of the things that's going on Twitter right now is fans feel like we might as well just tank the rest of the season. And I'm like, well, we've already won 5 games.
Yeah.
So what do if you're not going to get the Jaguars, Jets, and Lions are not going to suddenly get hot and surpass you for a top, for the top pick of the draft. The Lions tied the Steelers. They couldn't even win with the Steelers quarterback out. So the Lions are probably going to go 0-16-1. That's because they're that raw. They have that little talent, and the Jets are the Jets. And the Jaguars aren't much better. Then my second question is, who are you tanking for? What position you want? People forget Kevin White was the number 7 overall pick of the 2015 draft. He was the second receiver taken. Amari Cooper was number 1. But the most productive receivers out of that draft are Stephon Diggs, a 5th round pick, and I forgot who somebody was in the third round. Hang on, it'll come back to me in a second because I had this stat earlier. But yeah, Alvin Kamara was a third round pick. So who are you tanking for? Are you tanking for a quarterback? What quarterback? Which quarterback is going to be a top 10 pick?
Not in this draft.
No.
Cora over there, Old Miss. Is that who you're tanking for? I don't think most fans have him as like their top quarterback. So what are you tanking for? So that's the tanking is just stupid. Because
Sean Payton will not tank anyway.
No,
exactly.
No, all that's going to end up happening is people get fired, fans stop going to games, season tickets, people stop getting season tickets. I've already lived through those years, and here the best part about it is you're going to think they're in this great position to take this player in the draft, and they're going to take somebody else that you don't want. They're going to take an offensive tackle in that first round instead of a wide receiver because they're going to go, oh, we got a wide receiver much later in the draft. So even your tank isn't going to go the way you want it to.
Right. And the reality too is, they're 5-4, and they're liable to take some lumps in the second half of the season. Between their schedule and it being so shorthanded and limited on offense. Mm-hmm. But look at where they are right now. They're in second place in the NFC South, and they have a game up on Tampa.
Yeah.
They still have 3 divisional games left to play. Tampa, Atlanta, and Carolina. All you need to do is get into the dance. The Arizona Cardinals went to the Super Bowl with a 9-7 record.
Yeah.
The Seattle Seahawks won a playoff game with a 7-9 record. The New York Giants won 2 Super Bowls with 9-7 records. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl by playing every playoff game on the road last year.
Yeah.
It's all about getting into the dance, getting on a roll, and matchups once you get into the playoffs. And Sean Payton is a master at matchups. At this point, the Saints are eyeing the division. I think none of us realistically thought coming into the season that this team was going to compete for a number 1 or number 2 seed. And I think you could kiss that out the window. These other teams, Cowboys, Rams, Cardinals, Packers, they have too many games up on them right now. So at this point, the Saints need to win their conference games and especially their division games with a key conference game coming up against the Eagles. And with an extra playoff seed now, thanks to last year's latest Goodell guffaw, that gives New Orleans another opportunity. So that, like Sean said, Sean Payton is not going to tank. He's just not. It's not in his DNA.
No. And like Calvin said, there's no quarterbacks, and receivers are average in this draft. You can get a good receiver late in the draft. You don't have to tank for anybody. The biggest problem the Saints had coming into this season was salary cap. They had to trim $100,000, and we've talked about this before, off their cap total. And that meant sacrificing a lot of players, including Emmanuel Sanders. And you did not have the cash to go into a bidding war for some of the other receivers. And the second thing that happened is you had a new quarterback come in twice. You've had Jameis Winston come in, and now you have Trevor Siemian come in. And ironically, as bad as these receivers are playing, and we don't even talk about Troutman yet, but as bad as these receivers are playing, I don't know about you guys, but I think Trevor Siemian is actually moving this offense better in a lot of ways than Winston did. Winston had better looking stats because he had a lot more touchdown passes, but Winston was getting some big plays or throwing touchdowns in the red zone. And Siemian is doing the thing that Winston was struggling with, moving the ball between the 20s. At least that's how it looks to me. I mean, how do you feel about that, Bob?
I'd agree with that. Now, I personally feel that the offense was definitely headed in the right direction with Winston when he went down. And Winston certainly has the more explosive capability and had the more explosive plays. But Simeon and all three of us looked him up and were aware of him by the time he came to the Saints, and we knew what he was. And he was playing above himself. But Simeon is an excellent student of the game. He understands systems well, and he understands his role in the system. That's why he's moving the offense so well. He doesn't get shaken up in crucial moments. He is I thought he's played extremely well poised in the 3 games he's come in, counting especially that Tampa Bay game. But you're a third string quarterback, and you're down by 2 scores in the fourth quarter of back-to-back games, and you brought your team within an eyelash of winning both contests. I think Simeon has done a hell of a job.
I do too. I think that, as Bob said, he's played above himself. I didn't really know what to expect when he was thrust into the game when Winston got hurt. But when he can get help from these receivers, he's playing balls out, man.
Simeon is not an NFL starting quarterback. He is a backup who can come in and step in, keep your offense going, and run a few games. He is going to hit a wall soon, but right now he can do what you need to do to win. So don't take my statement that the offense is moving better under Simeon to mean that I think Simeon should have been starting over Winston. Far from it.
No.
Simeon has a sidearm delivery, which leads to a lot of knockdown balls. And some inaccurate passing. But he is showing these receivers, exposing them a lot more to their limitations, because he's putting that ball in their hands. I mean, Kevin White, he's got that ball hits him in the hands. He fully extended. He should have brought that ball in and come down with it. There's a couple other receivers, Trautman especially, the ball's hitting him in the hands and they're dropping them. They're all good passes. So that, and the offensive plays, he's putting the ball in the air a lot more. Granted, he's got to come from behind, so they can't run the football. But he is putting that ball out there a lot more, so the shallow crosses and the digs and all that kind of stuff, all those routes are back. That wheel route to Mark Ingram was a beautiful pass.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a beautiful play, and he put it right where it needed to go. And they tried to basically run the same play, but from the other side to Ingram for the 2-point conversion play. All that said, every game's going to be a struggle. And there are no guarantee wins or, when I said after the Tampa game, I felt there were so many winnable games. I don't feel that way anymore, because the margin for error, whether it's committing penalties or not getting enough turnovers, I think is almost evaporated. They lost that game Sunday because not only that bad call, but the kickoff to start the second half, they hit Deontay Harris in the gut and popped that ball loose. And it gave them the ball inside the 20. They did everything that the Saints needed to do to win that ball game. And that's how they got it, and they won by 2 points, So all that being said, what are the odds the Saints win Sunday against Philadelphia? How do you feel about that, Sean?
It's hard to say. And at the risk of taking the easy answer here, it depends on which team shows up. Are the receivers going to catch the ball? Is the defense going to play lights out again? Mm-hmm. You played that well against what I consider to be one of the best defenses in the league right now in Tennessee. If you can play like that every time and eliminate those errors, which is we're starting to sound like a broken record every week by talking about the errors that they make. But I mean, that's part of it.
It is frustrating. You know, Bob, I'm going to ask you this. It seems like that it's a different phase of the game breaking down. The past couple of weeks, the secondary hasn't played very well, which is part of the reason why, you know, the Saints have struggled. What do you think it will take Sunday to win this game against the Eagles?
Cleaning up the controllables. The secondary has to stop making no-name receivers look like Jerry Rice. That's actually been a problem most of the season. They've shut down the guys like Mike Evans, AJ Brown this Sunday, but guys like John Ross, draft bust John Ross and Marcus Johnson, who I believe went undrafted altogether this past Sunday. They look like Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, that kind of player against them. So the Saints cannot play down to the level of their competition when it comes to that, A. And B, again, controlling the controllables. The three of us, we were almost a foreteller of doom last week when we were talking about the fact that this offense just is not good enough to overcome getting behind in the sticks. A penalty or a sack early in the down has pretty much eliminated your possession. 3 times on Sunday, New Orleans drove into Tennessee territory. 2 of those times were easy field goal range, at least for a competent kicker. On all the 3 of those drives, the first one, a sack, then a penalty. On the second one, a penalty, then a sack. And on the third one, and this is the only beef that I had with Trevor Siemian really at all in the last 3 weeks, awful field awareness and clock awareness. Because on that 2-minute drive, that was the easiest field goal opportunity of the 3. He took 2 sacks. He took 2 sacks and basically squandered the possession.
That not to interrupt, but yeah, I'm thinking about that exact play. And this is one you're probably talking about, where he ran and stared at the guy chasing him, and he's out of the pocket. Throw the ball away. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Once he was outside of the pocket, I'm like, throw the GD ball away, because there's no reason to take that second sack. So I know, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I mean that infuriated me. And I thought that was the worst part of the whole game for Siemian.
Yeah,
is that 2-minute drill that was inexcusable.
And even the week before, that 3 times they drove into Atlanta territory.
Yeah.
Once sacks took them back. Another time, 3 penalties in 4 plays took them back. And then another time it was a strip sack that was returned essentially for a touchdown. So that's 6 opportunities in the last 2 weeks where you had at least 4 of them were at least solid chances for field goals where you came up with nothing because you couldn't control your controllables. And part of that, I mentioned the penalties and the sacks. I'm also including the drop passes and the poor routes too. It's those kind of things. And it's very easy to say that you should be able to control them, because you should be able to control them. But until they do, they're not going to win really against anybody. And Philadelphia has won games recently because they are beating people fundamentally and with old school football. So that's going to be a real challenge for the Saints on Sunday.
Absolutely. I mean, they go through too many stretches where they beat themselves, and that's what drives, I think, Peyton crazier than anything else. He would rather get beaten simply because we lack the weapons than to watch teams beat us because we're letting them back in the game, or we're making the mistakes that cost us the game. And that's why he was so angry on Sunday. So when people talk about, well, we should bench Troutman, why isn't Juwan Johnson playing more? We need to cut these receivers and bring other guys in. Where's Golden Tate at the AARP club? I mean, there's a reason why this guy is not signed with anybody, because he's old. You know, we didn't even talk about Odell Beckham Jr., but you know, you saw him Sunday, or I mean last night. You know, he's there only to get himself a ring
Yep.
and market himself. He's not out there to play football. So you know, if he would have come to the Saints, he's not going. He's not going to take himself seriously. He's gonna be the kind of guy that slows up on a route, gives up on a route if the ball's not coming to him. You know, so that's the kind of player you had. But you knew he could catch. That's why you wanted him. You know, um, um, yeah, I said this a while back, Calvin, that Troutman is a poor man's Josh Hill. He really is, and people ask him why is he getting so many snaps, because Dwan Johnson can't block at all. You know, and if you don't play Troutman, you play Dwan Johnson, you basically tip in your hand every time that he's just going to go out for a pass. Troutman, you can line him up as a blocker. You can block with him, and then you can send him out for a pass. And the frustrating thing about him is the moments seem too big for him. You know, it's not just the game itself, because there's times where he does do it. He does a great job blocking. There are times when he catches the ball, but at critical moments when he knows everything's going to count on him, he makes that mistake or takes his eyes off the ball and drops the ball. Burning the house down, hon? Okay. That's good. It's not my food, so I'm good with that.
Sean, what's your take on Troutman? I'll let you go first.
Yeah.
He's far too inconsistent. But as Alan just said, at this point, you have no options.
Yeah.
Because if you run Juwan Johnson out there, just like Alan said, everybody knows what it's for.
Yeah, it is frustrating in that regard. So, and like y'all just said a minute ago, you know, you have such a thin margin for error because you're about the same talent level as about 20 other teams in this league. So, you know, a game like the Eagles or a game like the Falcons, even the Titans, without Derrick Henry, you know, you're still one play is going to be a handful of plays going to be the difference between winning and losing. And you have to roll what you got. There isn't, like Mike Tillier said, there's no savior coming in the building. No one's going to come in. You can't make a move to get somebody now. You have to wait till the off season. I think that's why some people want to tank. It's because they're like, well, yeah, let's just blow up the roster now and get rid of, you know, trade Michael Thomas, start cutting all the high salaries off the roster and just start over again. I mean, and my question again is, if you do that, are you really going to get any better? Or is it going to be, this is going to be the yearly thing now? We just start because we didn't draft very well. We drafted another Troutman, or we draft another Ruiz, you know. Are we going to start cutting players, you know, draft another Peyton Turner who's injured? You know, I mean, that's the treadmill you're going to be on. And that's the treadmill the Lions have been on for 50 years.
Yeah, listen, and I feel pretty strongly that I speak for both of you guys too. That we're pointing our fingers at the at the Eeyores of, you know, Saints Twitter, Saints Facebook, that a certain faction of Saints fans, and a lot of them don't watch this particular show, which I'm sad to say because of what I'm about to speak. This is the same core that won 4 straight NFC South championships, that literally got screwed, you know, once by fate and another time by Goodell and cronies, got screwed directly out of 2 Super Bowl appearances.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you blowing this up? Because
right.
Because you had an injury plagued season where the ball didn't bounce your way, and you were exposed for, you know, poor drafting in some aspects, receiver / tight end. That same poor draft room, you know, really Sean Payton and Jeff Ireland, Mickey Loomis, that same poor draft room also netted you Eric McCoy, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, David Onyemata. I can go on and on and on and on and on. Well, again, why are you blowing this up now? The core of your talent is still somewhere between the ages of 27 and 30. You're still in good shape. Probably won't go to a Super Bowl this year, but you're in good shape for the foreseeable future.
And I said this from the beginning of the season, going way back in the preseason. I didn't expect this team to be a Super Bowl team, and I didn't even expect them to win a division. I expected a season where we were 5-4 or somewhere around that, but I didn't expect us to beat Tampa, Green Bay, New England. I didn't expect those wins. I expected us to beat the Giants, the Falcons. I expected those teams that we were going to knock off.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have you have a lot of the things that are in place, and to me, any other team that lost the level of players and the kind of players that we have lost should be competing with the Lions and the Jaguars and the Jets for a top 5 pick, not still talking about the possibility of winning the division.
Right.
I mean, so I think that's what frustrates the Eeyores of Saints Twitter, is that this team, I even read, somebody even told me this, the Saints are going to be just good enough to get in the playoffs and lose in the first round. Okay. And I mean, I lived through 2-14 seasons. I watched the 1-15 Saints. I mean, the option you have is that's the season you have to watch. Okay. Where every week is just miserable. Every week we're sitting here talking about what new gallows humor could we come up with. I mean, do you know how long it's been since we told the joke, or I've told the joke that I left 2 Saints tickets on the dash of my car. Somebody broke into my car and left 2 more. I mean, that was a common joke in the 70s. So it's frustrating. 2 other things that we need to talk about before we get off the air, though, tonight. As we thought, Mark Ingram finally broke the record. He is now the Saints' all-time leading rusher. Congratulations to Ingram. I'm very happy this happened. Mm-hmm. Not because I don't like Deuce. I love Deuce, but it needed to happen. He was so close. I felt the same way about Barry Sanders when he was so close to beating Walter Payton's record. You needed to play one more season, Barry. You needed to break that record because you weren't going to the Super Bowl, so you needed that highlight. You needed that cherry on the top. Where would you put Mark Ingram in the hierarchy of Saints running backs? Sean, I'll let Bob think about it, but I'm gonna hit Sean first.
That's a tough one. I would have him pretty close to the top. And one of the main reasons for that is from the year that he was drafted, mm-hmm. His production increased. He improved his game every offseason. And all that culminates with what you saw Sunday with him having that record, which I love. I wanted him to stay in New Orleans when he left and get it then.
Yeah. How about you, Bob? Where would you put him in the hierarchy of Saints running backs? Maybe I should name these guys too, but I'll let you go ahead and answer.
Well, I'll actually put Ingram at the top. I think he's the best running back in Saints history for a couple reasons. Number one, and Sean just said it, I admire Mark Ingram because of the way he improved his game. When he came out of college, he couldn't catch because he wasn't asked to catch at Alabama. He couldn't block because he wasn't asked to block at Alabama. And as a result, his first 2 or 3 years, he saw shared time in the backfield. Mm-hmm. He earned snaps because he improved in those aspects. And the second reason is, I mean, he's a fan favorite, and everybody loves Angry Ingram. It's the longevity. Yeah, I know he left for 2-3 years and came back.
Mm-hmm.
It's the longevity for me that puts him above everybody else. Alvin Kamara, I do believe, is going to be the best running back in Saints history. And Kamara is entering that sweet spot where Saints running backs go afoul, where everything goes haywire. I mean, George Rogers, Chuck Muncie, so much talent squandered. I believe talent-wise, Muncie, in my opinion, is probably the most talented back in Saints history for the package.
Absolutely.
But Galbraith, Muncie, Rogers, Dalton Hilliard before he wrecked his knees. They all had like 4 or 5 years. Deuce before his wrecked knee. I think Deuce gave us 5 or 6 realistically good years.
Mm-hmm.
Ingram has put together more than that, and that's why I admire. That's why I put him at the top, because he has the lasting power that those other talents did not.
I totally agree with that. And I would have to put Ingram as the best running back in Saints history as well, just because of the longevity. The thing about the Saints running backs, somebody made the comment that, 7,000 yards, that's roughly about what he's going to get. 7,000 yards for a career as a Saints running back is really not that much, considering that Ricky Williams alone for his career is at 10,000 yards. But you have to keep in mind the Saints running back room. When you start talking about the great running backs that have been on this club, it's very, very small. Chuck Muncie was the first 1,000-yard rusher, and he did it in 1979. That's 12 years into the Saints' existence. Okay. The next 1,000-yard rusher is George Rogers. George Rogers, really, his career with the Saints is 81 to 84. And that's 51 games because the 82 season is shortened by a strike. So there's only 9 games they play in 82. And he's injured a lot. So, by 84, we've already traded for Earl Campbell, and Rogers is being phased out. So he's traded by 85. So he's got a very small window, and he became the Saints' all-time leading rusher in just 51 games.
Yeah.
That record stood until until Deuce McAllister breaks it in 2005, the year McAllister got injured. So, you're talking, that's only 4,000 yards, I think. Rogers had 4,100, 4,200, and most of it was his first year. He had 1,600 yards his first year. In the meantime, in the 80s, after Rogers, you have Reuben Mays for a couple of seasons. Then he started getting injured and nicked up. Dalton Hilliard moves in. Dalton Hilliard takes it over. Then he starts getting injured, and he is the last Saints 1,000-yard rusher from 1989 to 2000. The entire 90s, we never have a 1,000-yard rusher. And you think about the running backs in the 1990s: Vaughn Dunbar, Derek Brown, Mario Bates, Ray Zeller. Gil Fenerty. I mean, just Brad Muster, yes, the guy who thinks.
I'll stop, because if I don't, I can't.
Finks wanted to draft Brad Muster over what's his name, Ironhead Hayward. That was the guy that Finks wanted, and the Bears took him. So yeah, I mean, just Lamar Smith. These are the running backs they had on this team, and it's not until they make the Ricky Williams trade that you finally get a 1,000-yard rusher. And it's really not until you draft Deuce McAllister in 2001 that you finally get a franchise running back and he was the longest last running back until Mark Ingram. So yeah, so you're talking about a very, very small room of productive backs, and Mark Ingram was the most productive of them all. So yeah, it's just. You never You never hear him complain about getting carries. The closest you got was in 2016, I think it was, when Tim Hightower was getting all the carries and scoring the touchdowns against Arizona, and Ingram got pissed off on the sideline until Sean Payton took him aside and said, "Hey, you know what? This is his homecoming. You need to give this to him." So yeah, I'm very happy for Ingram. I'm glad he came back, and I'm glad he came back with tread on his tires.
Yeah.
He didn't come back like an Emmitt Smith, who's just there, with Emmitt Smith in Arizona. I'm thinking, where he's there just to collect a check. His best days are not behind him. Last thing to talk about: the impact Marcus Davenport is having on his defensive line. You still have to deal with the injuries, but he is got 1 year left. They picked up his option. Do you extend him? Do you sign him to a long-term contract now?
Absolutely.
You do, Sean.
Absolutely.
How about you, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to. I believe the Peyton Turner pick was made this year not to replace Marcus Davenport. I did it first, and then they extended. Then they picked up Davenport's 5th-year option, and then I realized Peyton Turner is not here to replace Marcus Davenport. Peyton Turner is here to replace Cam Jordan.
Yeah.
It might not be in 2022, but it'll be by 2023. And Marcus Davenport, nobody's ever argued. Nobody in their right mind has ever argued his talent. Everything seems to be coming together this year, and it was a shame, that he went down with another injury. And you knock on wood that he actually stays healthy and puts this thing together, because he is a perennial Pro Bowl talent if he could stay on the field. He plays the run way better than people realize, and it takes 2 to 3 guys minimum to keep him out of the opposing backfield as a pass rusher. I think he's just hit the tip of the iceberg as far as talent and production. So I absolutely agree. I think you do extend him.
Did y'all notice the play where he pushed that offensive lineman right into Tannehill for a sack? I mean, I watch him a lot on when he's out there in the field. I watch to see what he does, mainly because I'm tired of hearing the 2 first nickname and all that other stuff, and damn, he's always injured and that kind of thing. Because I agree with you. When he's out there, he is an animal. And the Titans were double teaming him and single blocking Cam Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
That tells me something. That tells me a big deal. And you're right. The big thing about him is availability. He needs to be out there. He needs to play 16 games. Teron Armstead's the same way. Teron Armstead's probably one of the best tackles this franchise has had, not named Willie Rofe. And that means I think he's better than Stan Brock and Kyle Turley, you name them. I think Armstead is probably the if Rofe is number 1, I think Armstead's number 2. I think Ryan Ramczyk, he's having a down year this year, but Ryan Ramczyk is like Alvin Kamara. He's rising up the board quickly to be up there, and he probably will be up there with Willie Rofe at one point. But right now, Teron Armstead is one of your best guys, but his problem, again, is availability. You can't count on him for 16 games. That still doesn't prevent me from paying him, because you don't know what that year is going to be where he has 16 games in him, or now 17 games in him, and he's going to make those plays. And I think part of the reason the Saints are investing so much in defensive linemen is they want to make sure he's available, so they're going to rotate him a lot, to try and keep him from getting injured. So, I think Peyton Turner is there to replace Cam Jordan, but I also think Peyton Turner's in there to act as a pass rusher, defensive lineman who rotates in a lot in games to give people breaks. So just because I think the days of, as long as Sean Payton's there, the days of Cam Jordan's taking every snap at the outside, unless you can stay healthy, are gone. I think the Saints are going to have guys constantly rotate in always to keep their pass rushers fresh and to keep them from getting injured. So, okay, so we went almost an hour and a half again, as always, because we spent 45 minutes on the man who shall not be named. Real quick, last thing. I'm not going to ask predictions, but I am going to ask you guys, each of y'all, what do you think the Saints have to do Sunday to reverse this? They haven't lost 3 in a row in a long, long time. Going back since before 2017, they haven't lost 3 in a row. What do the Saints need to do to get a win on Sunday at Philadelphia? Sean?
Stay focused on the task at hand. Play complementary football on both sides of the ball. And you've got to eliminate the mistakes.
Yeah, I agree. Bob, what do you think they need to do?
Offensively, they need to get themselves into a rhythm early instead of late, and actually put some points on the board in the first half for sure. Probably even the first quarter. Defensively, you need to stop the run. And I know that sounds crazy for the top-ranked rush defense, but remember what the Eagles did to this team last year. They put up 246 yards rushing on them. So you need to stop the run and keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, because Hurts had 100 yards against them last year. He's a better passer now than what he was at this time last year, but his greatest weapons are still his legs. The Eagles' running game, they won't pound straight at you. They'll spread you out, pick a gap, and explode through it. So the Saints have to maintain backside focus, like Sean just said, and gap integrity. If they do that and they can keep Hurts in the pocket and contain the Eagles' running game, they'll put points, and they're able to put points on the board early. You're going to see the confidence level of this floundering Saints team really start to ebb. And I think that if those two things happen, they'll take care of business and could win even by a couple of scores.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of y'all. I think they can't wait to the fourth quarter to get it going. Granted, in the fourth quarter, teams start playing zone defense, a lot more zone, giving the Saints receivers holes to sit in. But I think that you got to get turnovers early. We haven't gotten a turnover in a while since the Tampa game. Yeah, we need to get a turnover early. We need to jump on this team early. We need to be able to run the ball consistently against them. Keep Jalen Hurts on offense on the sideline. So when Jalen comes in, he's going to be pressing. And Marshawn Lattimore needs to treat Devonta Smith like a Mike Evans, because otherwise he's going to get you. I mean, he's thin, but he's fast. He is everything that they thought he was going to be coming into the league. I mean, he's a speed demon. And he doesn't mind, for somebody being so thin, he doesn't mind going over the middle. He's a complete receiver, so you can't let him have a big game. But the main thing is we need to have boom and zoom going big time. You need to have Ingram hitting the inside and Kamara bouncing to the outside, wearing that defense down. And short fields, get the short fields with turnovers, because to me, that's what's been missing. Asking Trevor Siemian to march 80 yards or 75 yards often early is just asking for trouble, because all it takes is a penalty or a sack or something that gets them behind and down in distance, and now they're struggling. That's the things that need to happen to win. I don't know if all it's going to win. If I can get my turnovers, that'll be the huge difference, because statistically, they're winning these games. They're winning time possession. They're winning total yardage. They really are. But, it's a handful of plays. And all we need is those handful of plays to turn in the Saints' favor instead of against the Saints' favor. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you sticking with us. I'm sorry we got a late start today. I'm telling you, work is becoming more heavier for us, heavier for me at the end of the year than it was in the summertime. So but I'm glad you guys stuck with us. Bob, I know you got your normal stuff coming out. I saw you had a story come out today about the matchups between the Eagles and the Saints. What other stories you have in the hopper right now?
I'm gonna focus on the matchups the rest of the week. Today's story was about the Saints' run defense, how it matches up against the Eagles' rushing attack. Some very interesting numbers in there. Tomorrow, I'll hit the other aspect of the defensive matchup: pass defense versus Hurts and those receivers. Then I'll hit the offensive side of the ball. And I'll hit on a lot of the points that the three of us brought up tonight. Including a little statistical dive. And I usually like to, compare some potential individual matchups in these pieces too.
Well, that's great. And as always, we can follow Bob on social media. He's got you're with Canal Street Chronicles. No, Sports Illustrated. Canal Street Chronicles. That's great.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, not Canal Street Chronicles. Yes. Saints News Network and SI.com. Saints News Network covers the New Orleans Saints for SI.com, so you can find our pieces on either site. And then, of course, I post them on my personal page, Bob Rose at Facebook, and at BobbyR2613 on Twitter. I
see it every time, and I read the stories. I just don't pay attention where they come from. I apologize. And Sean, as always, I know you got to go play with your meat, so you got to run as well. Thank you guys for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.